Most parents who stand in front of their child's messy closet do not see a behavior problem. They see a mess, and they assume the mess means their child is lazy, forgetful, or simply not trying hard enough to keep things tidy. But what is actually happening inside that child's brain is something entirely different, and almost no one tells parents this. The set of mental skills that allows a person to plan, focus, remember instructions, and manage multiple tasks, what developmental psychologists call executive function, is not fully developed in children until their mid-20s. A 7-year-old standing in front of a closet full of clothes, shoes, and toys is not a small adult choosing to be disorganized. That child is a brain trying to use equipment that is still under construction. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that acts like an air traffic control tower, managing incoming information, deciding what to prioritize, and keeping a plan in mind while carrying it out, is not fully wired yet. So when a child opens that closet, looks at the pile, and seems to freeze or wander away, what looks like avoidance is actually a neurological event. The brain is receiving too many competing signals at once: the red shirt, the blue shirt, the missing shoe, the toy on the floor, and it does not yet have the neural pathways to sort, sequence, and execute a plan without support. The parent response that feels most natural in that moment, repeating the instruction more loudly, adding a consequence, or doing it yourself out of frustration, is the one response least likely to help that brain build the skill it actually needs. What you will understand by the end of this video is why the closet mess is not a discipline failure, why the organizational systems that work for adults fail for children, and 5 specific, research-supported changes you can make in the next hour that turn that closet from a source of daily conflict into a tool that actually strengthens your child's developing brain. What remains confusing if you leave now is why your child still cannot keep the closet tidy even after you have explained it 10 times, and why the frustration keeps landing on both of you. If you are watching this at 11 at night because you just closed your child's closet door for the 15th time this week, you are not failing at organization. You are a parent trying to solve a developmental puzzle with the wrong tools, and no one gave you the right ones. Everything I am covering here draws from peer-reviewed child development research and established guidance from pediatric and psychological organizations. This is education, not personal advice for your child's specific situation. So before you make any decisions about your child's health, behavior, or development, talk to your pediatrician or a qualified child psychologist. In the next 20 minutes, we are going to walk through 5 specific changes, in the right order, that transform how that closet functions for your child. We will cover why visual clutter hijacks a child's attention in a way it does not hijack yours, why the storage systems marketed to parents are often designed for adult brains, how to build a system your child can actually maintain without you standing over them, the counterintuitive reason that fewer choices in the closet lead to more independence, not less, and the specific maintenance rhythm that prevents the mess from rebuilding itself in 3 days. These are not decorative tips. They are developmental strategies disguised as organization hacks, and they work because they match the brain your child has right now, not the one they will have in 15 years. The first change is the one that makes every other change possible, and it starts with understanding something called visual working memory. Working memory is the brain's ability to hold and use information for a short period while completing a task, like remembering a phone number long enough to dial it. Visual working memory is the specific version of that skill for images and spatial information, and in children it is remarkably limited compared to adults. Research using the NIH Toolbox Cognition Battery, which tracks cognitive development from age 3 through adolescence, shows that visual working memory capacity grows gradually throughout childhood, but does not approach adult levels until the teenage years. What this means in a closet is simple and profound. When an adult looks at a messy closet, their brain automatically filters out the irrelevant information. The adult brain sees the pile, categorizes it instantly, and knows where to start. When a child looks at the same closet, their brain does not filter. Every item, the sock, the book, the toy car, the shirt, the shoe, registers as a separate signal competing for attention. The brain becomes overwhelmed not by the mess itself, but by the number of individual visual decisions it is being asked to process at once. This is why a child can walk into a closet to get dressed, and emerge 20 minutes later, having tried on 3 outfits and found none of them, or having forgotten why they went in there at all. The brain was not being defiant. It was being flooded. The first hack is to reduce the visual load to a level the child's brain can actually manage, which means removing everything from the closet floor and lower shelves that is not clothing. Toys, books, random objects, they need to live elsewhere. Not because a tidy closet looks better, but because every non-clothing item in that space is a visual signal stealing working memory from the task of getting dressed. A child whose closet contains only clothes, and only clothes that are visible in a way their brain can process, is a child whose brain can finally focus on the actual job. The second hack is to replace closed storage with open, visible storage. And the reason for this goes back to a concept most parents have heard in infancy, but never connected to organization. Object permanence is the understanding that things continue to exist even when you cannot see them. Infants develop this between 4 and 8 months of age, but here is what parenting manuals do not explain. The basic understanding that objects still exist when hidden is not the same as the brain's ability to retrieve those objects from memory when planning a task. A child may know intellectually that their socks are in the closed drawer, but if the drawer is closed and the socks are not visible, the brain does not automatically cue that memory when the child is trying to get dressed. The socks are, in a practical sense, offline. The child's brain does not have the fully developed executive function to hold a mental inventory of closed storage locations while also making clothing decisions. This is why open front bins, clear containers, or low shelves where clothes are visible at a glance work. Dramatically better than drawers, cabinets, or lidded boxes for children under about 10 years old. The comparison is straightforward. A child's brain with limited executive function is like a phone with a small battery. It can run a few apps at once, but if you ask it to keep too many things active in the background, something shuts down. Closed storage demands that the brain keep a background app running, the location of the socks, while also running the foreground app of choosing an outfit. Open storage removes that background demand. The item is visible, the brain sees it, the decision happens in real time. When you switch to clear bins or open shelving at child height, you are not just making the closet prettier. You are removing a cognitive load that your child's brain was never designed to carry. The third hack is to use broad categories, not detailed ones, and this connects to a developmental reality that surprises most parents. Cognitive flexibility, the brain's ability to switch between different concepts and think about something in more than one way at once, develops rapidly between ages 6 and 9, but does not reach full maturity until around age 21. What this means for a closet is that when you ask a child to sort clothes into detailed categories, short-sleeve shirts, long-sleeve shirts, dress shirts, play shirts, you are asking their brain to perform a cognitive switching task that is genuinely difficult for them. Each item requires the brain to hold multiple sorting rules at once, decide which rule applies, and switch between rules for each new item. For an adult, this is automatic. For a child under 10, this is a heavy mental workout, and it is the reason they abandon the task halfway through or dump everything back into one pile. The research on executive function development from the National Center for Education Research shows that children perform significantly better on organization tasks when the categories are broad and consistent rather than narrow and shifting. So instead of detailed sorting, use 3 categories: tops, bottoms, and pajamas. Or school clothes, play clothes, and dress-up clothes. The categories should be based on how the child actually uses the clothes, not on how a retail store would organize them. A child who can reliably put all shirts in one bin and all pants in another is building the foundational sorting skill that will eventually support more complex organization. Asking them to sort at an adult level before their brain is ready is like asking someone to run a marathon before they can walk a mile. The skill builds in sequence, and broad categories are the first step. The fourth hack is the one that sounds wrong until you understand the brain science behind it, and it is this: limit the number of visible choices in the closet at any given time. Most parents assume that giving a child more options, more shirts, more pants, more shoes, builds independence and decision-making skills. The developmental research says the opposite is true for children under about 12. The reason is a concept called decision fatigue, which is the deterioration of decision quality after a long session of decision-making. Adults experience this after a day of choices at work. Children experience it after 3 or 4 clothing decisions because their executive function resources are so much smaller. When a child opens a closet and sees 20 shirts, 15 pants, and 8 pairs of shoes, their brain is not experiencing freedom. It is experiencing a cognitive traffic jam. Every additional option increases the working memory load, the inhibitory control demand, and the planning requirement all at once. The child either melts down, chooses the same thing every day out of overwhelm, or calls for a parent to decide for them. The counterintuitive solution, supported by research on choice architecture and child development, is to rotate the closet so that only 5 to 7 complete outfits are visible at any time. This is not deprivation. It is matching the decision-making capacity of the brain that is using the closet. A child who sees 5 complete outfits can evaluate, choose, and dress independently in under 5 minutes. The same child facing 30 individual items will take 20 minutes and need parental help. The independence you are trying to build with more choices is actually being destroyed by the cognitive overload those choices create. Rotate the outfits weekly or seasonally, store the rest out of sight, and watch what happens. The child who needed you to pick their clothes last week will be the child who gets dressed alone this week, not because they matured overnight, but because you finally gave their brain a task it could actually handle. The 5th hack is the one that prevents the mess from returning in 3 days, and it is not a bigger organizing session. It is a smaller, more frequent one. The brain builds habits through repetition and consistency, not through single intense efforts. Research on habit formation in children shows that short, frequent practice of a routine is significantly more effective than occasional deep cleans for building long-term automatic behavior. The maintenance rhythm that works is 5 to 10 minutes, 2 to 3 times per week, at a consistent time, ideally right before bed or right after getting dressed in the morning. Not a weekend overhaul. Not a monthly purge. A brief, predictable reset that the child does with you at first, then gradually does more independently as the skill builds. The first few times, you stand next to them and narrate the steps. Shirts in the tops bin, pants in the bottoms bin, dirty clothes in the hamper. After a week or 2, you step back and let them lead while you observe. After a month, the routine starts to become automatic, and the child begins to internalize the organizational pattern. This is how executive function develops in real life, not through lectures about tidiness, but through repeated, supported practice of a concrete task until the brain starts to manage it independently. Be honest about what you can handle at home versus where a professional genuinely helps. If your child has significant difficulty with organization across multiple settings, not just the closet but also at school, in play, and with daily routines, or if the mess is accompanied by high distress, anxiety, or avoidance that does not improve with these environmental changes, that is a signal to check with your pediatrician or a child psychologist. They can assess whether there are additional factors, such as attention differences, sensory processing needs, or other developmental considerations that require targeted support. The closet changes we have covered will help almost every child, but they are environmental scaffolding, not a replacement for clinical assessment when something deeper is at play. Here is the counterintuitive turn that most parents never hear, and it changes how you think about every room in your house. A cluttered, unpredictable environment does not just make it harder for a child to find their shoes. It elevates their baseline cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, even when the child is not consciously aware of the clutter. Research on environmental psychology and child development has documented that children in disorganized spaces show measurable stress responses, including elevated cortisol and increased activity in the limbic system, the brain's emotional alarm center, compared to children in organized, predictable environments. The comparison is this. A child's brain in a cluttered room is like a smoke detector in a kitchen where someone is burning toast every few minutes. The alarm is not going off because there is a fire. It is going off because the environment is constantly sending signals that something needs attention, and the brain cannot tell which signals are urgent and which are not. Over time, that low-grade, chronic activation changes how the child feels even when they are not looking at the mess. They are more irritable, more easily frustrated, more resistant to transitions. The parent sees behavior and assumes the child is being difficult. The research sees physiology and recognizes that the child's body is responding to an environment their brain cannot process. When you organize that closet, you are not just solving a practical problem. You are lowering the background noise in your child's nervous system. The calm you notice after the closet is tidy is not coincidence. It is biology. If you have the next hour free, here is the exact order to do this. And the order matters because each step builds the cognitive support the next one needs. Step 1. Remove everything from the closet floor and lower shelves that is not clothing. The reason is visual working memory. Every non-clothing item is a competing signal. Step 2. Replace any closed storage with clear bins or open shelves at child height. The reason is object permanence. If they cannot see it, their brain often acts as if it does not exist when they are trying to plan. Step 3. Create 3 broad categories only. Tops, bottoms, pajamas. Or school, play, dress up. The reason is cognitive flexibility. Detailed sorting is a skill that develops later, and asking for it now creates the overwhelm that makes them quit. Step 4. Choose 5 to 7 complete outfits and make only those visible. Store the rest elsewhere and rotate weekly. The reason is decision fatigue. Fewer choices create more independence, not less, because the brain can actually process the decision. Step 5. Establish a 5-minute reset at the same time 2 or 3 days a week. The reason is habit formation. The brain wires automatic behavior through short, repeated practice, not through occasional intense efforts. If you are finding this useful and you want more content that explains the developmental science behind the parenting challenges you are facing right now, this is the channel for that. The subscribe button is the one that keeps this kind of research-backed, guilt-free content in your feed. The next time you open your child's closet and feel the familiar rise of frustration, try to remember what you now know. That mess is not a character flaw in your child or a failure in your parenting. It is a developmental mismatch between a brain that is still building its air traffic control tower and an environment that was designed for a brain that already has one. Your child is not refusing to be organized. Their brain is asking for a different kind of support, one that reduces the signals it cannot yet filter, makes the invisible visible, and turns an overwhelming pile into a sequence of small, manageable steps. The parent who understands this is not a parent who tolerates mess. They are a parent who knows how to build the skill that eventually replaces the mess entirely. What is one space in your home, besides the closet, where you think your child might be struggling with the same invisible cognitive overload? Leave it in the comments. I read every one, and it shapes what we cover next. If this reframe changed how you see that morning struggle, subscribe. There is more research-backed clarity where this came from.